Hi there, I just want to do a sort of mini review and synopsis on my Steinberger copy. This is the Spirit XT25 Gibson copy. I want to show you a couple of things about it I find quite interesting. I've had it a few years now, so it's not like I've only just bought it. I quite like it, I still use it a lot. I mean, the most obvious thing to say about it is it's quirky, it's from the 80s like me, I like the shape. It's not the same as the original, it's for example, it's not carbon fiber, it's a slightly different shape, but it's quite nice. And the main thing about it is it's very easy to take abroad if you can travel one day. It's got the headless design, and it's got these little string tuners which are really cool because they give fine adjustment. I took them all apart, put grease in them, put them back again. And the nice thing about it is that it's very hard to bump these. So for example, it stays in tune. The only time it really loses tune is when I move, as I have done from the house to the garage. It's a bit colder in here, so the strings move a bit. My first bass I bought was a Squire vintage modified short scale, and the problem with that is that the tuning pegs were always being knocked and you'd always spend 5 minutes or the gig tuning it up. Here you just got the little adjustment screws, stick it into one of your tuners, and it comes out pretty close every time. The other thing I like about it is very lightweight, it's very compact, so you can take it away with travel. If you ever watch Dave's World of Fun stuff, I can recommend that. I don't think he's ever looked at one of these, but he looks at normal basses, and he's always interested in getting the action on the 7th fret at the 12 thousandths and the low action here at the very first fret, and he's interested in sort of the string heights and whatever. And this guitar is a little bit stranger to set up. Down the bottom here is a grub screw. When you undo that, the intonation adjustment moves and you can adjust the string height. Don't forget to lock it up when you're finished. Normally what I find is you lay it flat on the bench, it doesn't make that much difference to the tune, and you just use something like a little screwdriver to knock it back and forth, knock these back and forth a little bit until they're fairly close. So if we turn this up at the minute, here's the low B string, so we've got the 12th, and it's quite hard to get this top one, but you see it's close. If we look at the E string, okay, that's really spot on. That's pretty close. So it's quite good to get this intonated across the whole fretboard. There were very few of these sharp frets. I don't think there was any actually. What I did was a slight trick that Darryl Braun described, where you put a piece of ordinary sandpaper block and just gently up and down at a sort of 45-degree angle, give the edge a little bit of roundedness, go into the frets a bit. And normally these are pretty good for, let me just take this off a second, you can use these in a sit down mode. So I'll just put my leg in the air, you see this, the little fold out strap there, and it just balances quite nicely. I'm not touching it, no hands, it's actually quite a joy to play. And you can get up here to these higher frets. And you know, a bass is 1 octave down from a guitar, so this is getting close to low-end guitar, and it sounds quite nice, and it feels good. The stock strings on it are pretty rubbish. I don't really think much of the Gibson strings, your mileage may vary. These ones are Ken Smith. If you look carefully, you see that they really don't fit. I've seen people online almost bending the thing to get it in, so they just about fit. It's just, the bridge is kind of 6mm or so too much this way. I don't quite know why Gibson did that when they made the copy. I had some older British strings that I got. They are brilliant strings. I don't know who made them, but they were custom made off eBay some years ago. They fit this thing beautifully, but they're only the top 4 strings. So when I first put them on, you get a fantastic sound out of them, really quite 80s sound, but of course your then bass string, your B string, is just so dull in comparison, so it almost made it impossible to play. The other thing I don't like about it personally is that the strings for a 5-string are too close together for my fat fingers. Your mileage may vary, but it's really a 5-string and a 4-string space, so I don't like that. For me, I find it harder to slap, and I really don't try it that much on here, and to pick up, you know, if you want to play a normal thing, it's quite hard to pick it up underneath, but it does sound pretty good when you... And that's without changing the mids down, so the sound is good and the action is low. It's a pretty fast guitar. What I did different, Ali, I have a alias somewhere on the internet, Slicker Bass, and I mentioned this in some of the forums. If you can see here, let's turn it round, the original back strap hole is here, and there was a guy, I think it was Augusto, I'm not certain, he published a mod and you use a router spanner from a Bosch. And what I've done, if you can see here, I've taken a Shaler type, let me turn this down a second. I've taken a Shaler type guitar locking nut and just modified it to fit through onto a nylon locking nut here. And the spanner, I've put the diagrams on the internet somewhere. Again, look for Slicker Bass. I think something like 20 millimeters this way, and you just drill out where the centers are. If you see on this side, put it round, you can't see it unfortunately, on various points there's a raised sort of point where the tool goes into some sort of recess, and that's where I drilled out on this side here, and you use that as a guide for where to drill the holes. And what I did was I made it so that this more or less, this top bit comes in an extended line like that, if that makes sense. I don't know why, I just felt that was a good idea. I did some experimentation with a wooden version first. So now if I take the standard locking nut, I can lock it on, that's not going nowhere. And it sits beautifully at this point. It's not heavy at all, it's compared to other basses. And if you look, I play normally, this is a 34-inch scale. It's just about in the right space for everything here. So it just feels right. So it's got a nice feel like this, or if you're sitting down, it's great. It's got quite a sort of piano type sound in it. It kind of stands out quite well in the mix, although the pickups are very weak. So this front pickup is more like a P bass. Let's just turn it up. But you see, can you hear it? It's already got this. If I dig in, so it's got quite a quirky sound. If we put the back bass on, the back pickup, it's a bit more nasally. The front pickup again, turning the tone down rather, so you can get some nice low action. And the sustain is just killer. Play that E note there, that will just go on forever. And it's not a high mass bridge, it's a pretty crappy bridge by I think you often see these like Overlord of Tone as the copy of it. So it's pretty standard, it just goes on forever. I mean, I have a Sustainer Bernie guitar which with a battery that obviously is different, but this gives it a run for its money. Sorry, I forgot, if I play that you can't hear what I'm saying. So I like the profile, I like the way it locks away nicely. I don't like this rear pickup so much, it's quite quiet. It also picks up most noise from our induction loop in the church I play, so they insist on putting the music through it. And as a result you get a feedback loop if you're not careful, and it doesn't do that trick like the P bass where you match the you know, if you match the volumes. So I guess they're not reverse wound. I have no idea what these pickups are. If there's anybody that watches this and they know about active pickups you can put in here at a reasonably priced, please let me know. Again, you can get the neck reasonably straight. I didn't have to do anything with fret leveling. I was perhaps lucky. I think it's a dual action truss rod, I'm not certain, but it did seem to be. And yeah, it's quite a bit of fun, this bass, and it stands out in the mix, at least from my perspective. So I hope that was useful. This probably two things that are probably the most useful is the string converter, which I haven't put on this, but I've got it. I got it from Anderton's in the UK for about 17-18 pounds, and that will allow me to put things like labella nylon strings that I really like, but that will make this quite quiet then as a bass. And this tool modification for the Straphook, because they don't no longer sell the Straphook, and that I think is, if you want to play stand-up bass, is great. Otherwise the sit-down bass, the sit-down with this Straphook is really cool. It's a really comfortable bass to play, and you almost feel like you're playing a guitar at times. So you can bend it quite easily. It's really quite a nice guitar, and I'm from the 80s, so it reminds me of my youth. Hope you enjoyed this. Cheers, bye.